So, it's Piglit time. Piglit is proving to be a very useful machine, but it's missing a vertical head, and they are absolutely unobtainium. I did see one for sale. It disappeared almost instantly, and it was up for sale for about €2,000. Now, given that the machine itself cost me €150, yeah, we're not looking into that kind of price. I'm very, very cheap. So, what needs to be done is we need to make a vertical head. This is something that I've been working towards for some time. It's part of why I got practice in with cutting gears, cutting bevel gears. I now have pretty much everything that I need, I believe. So, what do we have? Well, we have the axle from a drag lift. This is pretty much new old stock. It's 45mm diameter here. There's 35mm bearing lands, a couple of sets of threads, the big set of threads on the top, they can go, and then there's a set of 1.5mm pitch 35mm threads on this end. I'm fairly sure that's in frame. Yeah, that looks to be in frame. This is going to be a bit of a bugger. I'm going to have to, well, I'm going to lose the normal pitch threads from the end. It doesn't have a centre pop in this end, and it has a cross drilling. So basically I'm going to have to take this much off of it. That's going to be fun. That's what we're kind of going to be talking about in this video. It does have a centre pop in this end, and it is concentric. So what we're going to do is we're going to work out how we're going to deal with this. This bearing land I'm going to use either a 3207 bearing, conical bearing, or some 6007s that I've got. I've got some FAG 6007s, which would be quite nice on there. But then that doesn't allow me to tighten up properly without forcing sideways on the bearings. I'm not keen on that, so I think I'll probably end up buying a 6007 to go on there, and we'll have a 6008 on this end. I'm going to go ISO 30 to leave myself enough meat. So we're going to have to take off 5mm diameter down here, deal with sealing this end so that oil doesn't leak out of the bottom of it, and we're going to have to cross drill the whole thing. We're looking at probably 20 centimetres, slightly more than 20 centimetres deep, so that's going to be an interesting drilling exercise. Then when we come to boring out and grinding the interior cone, that will be done in place on the machine. So with this driven, so that will happen later, but there will be a pre-drill, cross-drill through phase that I'm going to need to get on with. So we have that. That's quite a lot of stick out. I'm going to need to centre drill the fat end in order to be able to do that. Centre drilling it means I'm going to have to hold it on this end and then centre drill. Again, a big lot of stick out. Okay, I've not tightened it up in the chuck, but you get the idea. That's going to whip around, it's going to fly all over the place. I'm never going to be able to get a decent centre into it. This bit's going to have to go anyway, so I'm going to cut this off, and it's going to leave me with no centres whatsoever. So what we need is a steady rest. Now, I don't have a functional steady rest for this lathe. What I do have is a partial steady rest that was given to me by a friend. This was a laser cutting exercise that he had some of his students do. They fucked up the CAD, So the bosses for putting threads through don't line up with the centre, which is bloody useless. However, it does match up with the bed of the lathe. So this is eventually going to get turned into a steady rest, but I'm going to lose the bosses, and I will deal with that myself. However, for the moment, non-functional, and we're not into getting a new project up and going. So that can go back where it lives, over there. And this is where we say never throw away a failed project. Now, I had at one point the idea of making a quick and dirty steady rest with 3 bits of bar that came through here. I missed my tolerances. My bars don't line up. I never really did anything with it. I just chucked it in the pile of aluminium that was going to get melted down to scrap. However, it does fit on the bed. It does have a big bolt going through it, and I have bearing lands. Now, these bearing lands could be very, very useful in terms of steady rests, because I can just make the thing sit on a 6007 bearing. But how can I get a 6007 bearing into this piece of shitty aluminium cut by hand? Well, in my pile of scrap, I have, you may notice some similarities with this piece of aluminium and this piece of aluminium. They came from the same place. This piece actually has a bearing housing for that's a thrust bearing goes in there. So it's a 7 series thrust bearing, and a bearing housing for a 6007. And did I mention? I think I did. A FAG 6007 bearing, which will fit nicely into a yon hole. It will also fit nicely onto a yon shaft. It's there. And this will allow me to support while cutting. What I could probably do with is some shielded 6007s. So what we've done, I have worked out my centre heights. This, can we see all this? God, I hope so. This screws onto here. So I just drilled and tapped a couple of holes. In fact, I didn't even drill and tap, I just drilled a couple of holes. Drilled a couple of 6mm holes to get my bearing land, my bearing housing at the right height to be on centre height for the lathe. And we should be able to, if we jiggery poke about a bit, get that there, get that there, and well, you get the idea. What we have now is a steady rest for this particular shaft, and we can use it on both ends. So I can use it to remove this end and centre pop, to remove this end, centre pop, and then I can turn between centres to remove the material that I need to remove from here. I can then reuse this for cross drilling. Right, well, with a bit of luck, that's in focus. It's a very janky looking setup, but we should be good to go. I've got a thrust bearing on this side to hold the bearing in place, and a nut on here, which should basically protect the bearing a little bit from the chips. We're going to turn the speed down slightly. Everything's locked in place. That doesn't need to be there. Let's see how we go, shall we? It is toughened already. Stop! What have stopped? Okay. I think we've seized up the bearing somewhere. Not good. Okay, we're back. Let's try that again, shall we? Tight. It's on there. I'm just going to leave that one there, and that will have to do. Right. Let's try again. And of course I'm an idiot, I completely forgot to press record during all of that. So, what we've got here, let's go up a bit. The other end is now set up in the 4-jaw chuck and dialed square at both ends. And we've just put a centre in the fat end. Now the centre for the moment is just temporary. It's temporary because I'm going to need to take this lot off, and then we'll come back to this setup again at some other point to drill all the way through, which could be quite exciting because it's going to be quite deep bore drilling. We're looking at about 21.5 centimetres. So of that, yes, could be an interesting exercise. Again, this will be done in this setup. So I'm going to put this aside for the moment, and that's all for today for the moment, because I think the storms are about to stop play. Bye.